In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the main principles of peaceful living, happy living. This has to do with something called the three modes of material nature. Just like all colors are made up of three base colors, red, green, blue, so everything in the world, every living entity, is made up of three different ingredients. In Sanskrit, these are called sattva, rajas, and tamas. And literally translated in English, you could say it means goodness or balance, passion, and ignorance or darkness. And we're going to dive more deeper into that now. I'm going to switch over to the computer and show you some diagrams and text there. I've often asked myself in life, how can I be more successful and not burn out? I met a lot of people in my life who actually did burn out. In fact, one of them I met in Switzerland last summer, and he told me the story how he was working long job and at the same time studying for an MBA. And he was pushing hard and thought, but that's okay. I'm strong. I will manage. And then one day he just stood up in the train and collapsed and woke up in the hospital. And after that, he was broken. He couldn't sleep anymore for months, years and years. I know people who push themselves to the edge of burnout, and since 20 years, they're not able to sleep anymore. Overstress, overwork, over caffeinated, and over endeavor leads to an incredible amount of stress. In fact, it's been said that 25% minimum, that's 1 out of 4 people in the Western world, is at a critical level of stress. That means they are shortly before landing in the hospital. So it's a very real thing. Fortunately, I never had to face that myself. The first 5 to 10 years after I finished secondary school, high school, I didn't go to university. Instead, I went to travel the world, so I had quite an easygoing life. And after that, I went to live in Indian temples as a monk for several years. Later, I met my wife in the temples also, and we continued to learn about these ancient techniques from the Vedas, from Ayurveda, and from Bhagavad Gita, how to live a successful life with maximum energy so that we are able to reach our projects, whether our projects are business orientated or spiritually orientated or relationship. We need to have the maximum amount of health to reach those goals. So, like I said, this was me in some different places in India. I spent about 5 years living in temples, studying in different places. That's my wife up there on the top left, actually on our wedding day in India. And along the way, we found this amazing book. And it's one of the oldest and most famous books in India, actually. In fact, there are thousands and thousands of translations of this book. And one of the verses here is what I want to speak about today in this presentation and how it relates to the topic of burnout. Here Krishna is speaking, and he says that material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So what he's saying here is that every one of us here on this planet, we become conditioned or even controlled by different modes. And these modes are likened to different colors, just like you can get practically every color from red, green, or blue, and then you get all the different color combinations. In the same way, you have these three different modes, and when they mix together, you get all different combinations of experiences in life or conditions in life. I'm going to give you some examples now. Here is a representation of what I would consider to be sattva or goodness. It's very pure, very gentle, very pleasing. This is a representation of passion, for example. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of endeavor. Uh, when people speak of passion, like be passionate in life, they are very active, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to talk about that later, but it's closely related to the third mode, ignorance or tamas. And this is a mode that, well, you could see in the picture a little bit about it, but you could also imagine someone who's drunk 24 hours a day, living homeless on the street. He's very much in ignorance or tamas. So, what are the qualities of these three different modes that I will outline here? Let's first talk about goodness or sattva. One of the main qualities is knowledge. When someone has a lot of knowledge, he naturally lives a more sattvic life. And that knowledge is directed towards spiritual life in some way or other. It's always increasing, and the more knowledge you get, the more pure your knowledge is becoming. Some qualities of goodness are truthfulness, mercy, generosity, being embarrassed by improper actions, charity, simplicity, humility, self-satisfaction, peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, like I said, and wisdom plus some sort of religiousness. And religiousness in this sense means, basically following the rules of good human behavior, morality. I would separate religiousness as morality when you hear about it from ancient Indian text, and spirituality as two separate things, in a sense. Another quality of the mode of goodness is they see all living beings as equal in spirit. And the experiences they have is fearlessness in the material body. Now let's go to the other side of passion. One of the qualities of passion is intense greed or longing. And it's directed towards material things, material possessions. Great attachment, fruitive activity. This means endeavoring after some results, and intense endeavor after results, and an uncontrollable desires. And they see different bodies as unequal. For example, they would see like someone is of a higher rank, someone is of a lower rank. We have the great examples throughout history. During the Second World War, they seen different bodies as unequal. 300 years ago, when people had slaves, some were masters. That was an example of seeing people as unequal. Today we have the example that we see animals as inferior to us, and that we can simply kill and eat them and do whatever we want with them because they are unequal. But the reality is they are just in a different body. So the experiences one has when he's very much in the mode of passion is becomes mentally unhappy. Therefore, they have a troublesome profession and an occupation. They have to work, but it's very troublesome. And they are forced to make plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain the status quo where they live. And all of this becomes very miserable. We all have heard of the examples of millionaires and billionaires who are just unhappy, and some even commit suicide. If they are too much engrossed in themselves and their material endeavors, they're not able to get happiness and satisfaction from this. So let's move on to ignorance. One of the main qualities of ignorance is illusion, madness, suffering. Basically, it's a lot of suffering, but due to the illusion and the madness, they don't properly understand the suffering or don't fully experience it, which is a great benefit for them actually. It's directed towards sleep and laziness. A very materialistic, obstinate, cheating, expert in insulting others, and they're quite lazy, morose, procrastinating. This is all qualities of the modes of ignorance. And one of the main qualities is they see work to be the all in all, nothing more. Just working, working, no higher endeavors in life, no spiritual aims. Of course, when work is connected to service or spiritual aims or so on, that's a different mode. But basically, you can look at it like quite animalistic, like some donkey or something who is just working and never thinks that actually, why should I work here? Grass is growing everywhere. Why should I have to haul this heavy load when I can just wander freely and eat grass? That is a great example. And they experience distress by their circumstances, so they take shelter of intoxication, like I gave the example of a 24 hours drunken people and so on. And it's a downward spiral, unfortunately. So, how can we now change this situation? And the answer is actually very profound and very deep. Uh, when we change our activities, we are able to change which of these three modes we move towards. We could be at different times of the day in different of these modes. In fact, to sleep at night, you need to be in this tamas, this darkness, that needs to be dark. And in order to sleep, that you again get energy. But I'm sure you've had the experience, if you sleep too long, you get even more tired. Equally in passion, if you sleep too less, you're burning out. So I'm going to talk about this soon, but the point is how to now change into different modes. And one of the best ways that I have found to change into different modes, besides where you live and which actions you take, is very, very simple. And anyone can do it. And I have direct experience of how doing this, what I'm about to tell you, has really shifted me through different modes, and it has shifted my consciousness, where I was able to become more and more happy in life just by this simple thing. And this is based on what you eat. Different foods have different qualities. So foods in the mode of goodness, they increase the duration of life. Here you see in the bottom sattvic foods. Basically, we're talking fruits, vegetables, grains, fresh foods, because these purify your existence and they give strength, health, happiness, satisfaction. These are foods that are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Now, foods in the mode of passion, they cause distress, misery, and disease. We can look here, we see a picture of chili peppers, pictures of onions. I'm sure you know what happens when you eat chili peppers and when you cut onions. They are foods that are too bitter, too sour, too salty, hot, pungent, dry, burning, and so on. Now, foods in the mode of ignorance, these are actually foods that are prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. So anything that is not fresh. So we're talking here about canned foods, processed foods, preserved foods, old food, something you cooked yesterday from the fridge, for example. And food that is tasteless, decomposed, putrid, and foods consisting of remnants and untouchable things like dead animals. Dead animals is a very tamasic food. Here's some more examples. Fresh fruits and vegetables are sattvic in the mode of goodness. These will, if you eat more of these, in fact, if you eat only these, you will quickly progress to a very happy state of mind. If it's fresh, lightly seasoned, living food with life energy. Rajasic food is written here, basically fried, dry, hot, spicy. It leads to suffering in the end, and as well as the tamasic food. Tamasic food is dead food. When we eat dead food, the same death is transferred to our body in the form of disease. So that's how it works. Now I want to tell you another tactic, how you can stay in Sattva Gun and how it works. This is a graph here, and I'm going to explain how it works in relation to activities. So these activities of how you work, how you go about your day. So on the left we have energy. So using an energy level of 0 to 100%, 100% at the top. And on the bottom graph we have time, as time goes on. So tamas, ignorance, doesn't need much energy actually. It's generally always quite a low energy level over time. Rajas looks a little bit like this. You use, and then at one point you use too much energy. Actually, in this graph, it should go above 100%, and your energy is finished, and you crash, and you end up in tamas, in the hospital, or you have to just burn out for a week. That's why people have to work and work and work, and then go on holidays and try to recover. On the other hand, sattva gun is something completely different. And once I understood this, my life has never been the same. It looks like this. You rest and then you give a lot of energy and you go up, up. But before you reach too much, rajas, then you take rest. And then you put again more effort, passion. And then you take rest. You're constantly balancing between rajas and tamas. But in itself it is something completely different. It's not that you fluctuate between tamas and rajas. It's a completely different state of being. It's neither too much nor too little. So I want to encourage you, when you are now working, when you are now endeavoring hard, be very attentive to when you are reaching your borders and slow down, take a rest, relax, come back. Generally, it takes just a little bit of rest to come back. This is why coffee is actually not a good thing, because it covers our perception of our over endeavor, and the body is not able to fully rest. When you drink too much coffee, you artificially put energy that the body does not have, and then it's not able to have energy to recover fully, and that is where a lot of diseases come from, being overstressed and not able to recover from that stress. As we know, the number one cause of cancer is stress. I want to give you a third tip, how to increase your level of sattva gun so you can live without stress and without disease. And this is called the 4 pillars to build sattva. This comes from, again, from ancient Vedic text, and they speak about 4 things that we should do. The first is austerities. Austerities means sometimes you have to do things that are a little uncomfortable. For example, waking up early is an austerity. Going to bed early is an austerity. Eating a purely vegetarian diet might be an austerity in the beginning, but it becomes very pleasing in the end. In fact, it is said that one of the symptoms of raja, of passion, is that it is very sweet like nectar in the beginning, but in the end it becomes like poison. And sattva, or goodness, is a complete opposite. In the beginning it feels like poison, and in the end it is like nectar. It is very pleasing. So I'm sure those of you who do, for example, sports or bodybuilding or going to the gym, or if you've done any such activities, you know it's very unpleasant in the beginning, but in the end it's you feel much better from it. So for me, I consider one of the very good austerities that everyone can do is getting up early and running. This is a very healthy and excellent austerity. There's, of course, many, many more. And I encourage you to think about how can you do healthy austerities. This will bring you out of tamas and more towards sattva when they are done in this balanced wave curve way. The second one is cleanliness. As you've seen in these pictures, tamas is quite a dirty situation, and rajas is closely linked to tamas in this sense. So you'll notice the more clean you keep your environment, the more clean you keep your kitchen, your living area, your working area, the more clear and calm your mind will become and more peaceful. The third one is kindness. When we practice kindness to other people, we also come out of the materialistic mindset. Remember how I said that the passionate or rajasic people see different living beings as unequal. But if we practice kindness to every living being, even the ants on the street, we will come more and more into this happy sattvic point of view where we wish everyone happiness. And at this point, I want to give you a very wonderful meditation to do. Whenever you are, it can be done anytime, in any way that you're used to meditating or that you're used to thinking about. I just want to make it very simple for you. And it is this quote: I wish everyone happiness. Take some time out of your day to sit peacefully and mentally focus and wish everyone happiness. You can start with people you know, people you don't know, even up to people you don't like, and people you don't know. Wish them happiness. Wish everyone happiness. And this will also bring you on the path towards a peaceful, happy mind in the mode of goodness. And the fourth and last but not least, very important item is truthfulness. People who are truthful and honest, they say, Dharma takes care of you, or basically life will take care of you. When you are truthful and honest, you will always have what you need. So we reach the end here. I encourage you to think about this and see what you can take into your life and start making gradual steps, slowly but sure steps. If there's one thing you take from this video that I would recommend as being the most efficient to bring you to the next level, it would be to look at your diet and how you can eat in a more sattvic way and sattvic foods, because we are what we eat. And be sure to watch the next video or the other video where I will speak about another wonderful way that we can bring ourselves into more sattvic way, the forest.